I never thought I'd be that guy. The one sitting in the dark, staring at doorbell footage like some half-retired detective in his own house. But that night, the night my wife told me, "Don't wait up tonight," changed everything. Now, I want you to picture this with me. It's a quiet Thursday evening, the kind where you can almost hear the house breathe. The clock says 8:37 p.m. and my wife, Lauren, is standing by the hallway mirror wearing a red dress I've never seen before. Tight, elegant, confident. You know the kind of dress I mean. The one that turns heads when a woman walks into a room. I leaned against the doorway, half smiling. "Big night?" I asked. She laughed, light and practiced. "Just dinner with Jenna and the girls. Don't wait up." Now, tell me, if your spouse said that, would you think twice? Or would you take it at face value, like I did? Because I'll be honest with you, folks, nothing about that moment felt wrong. I kissed her goodbye, watched her walk out the door, and told myself she deserved a night out. But sometimes, you can feel when something's off, can't you? That little itch in your gut that says the picture doesn't quite fit. She left. The house went quiet. Too quiet. I tried to busy myself, poured a drink, watched a little TV, checked my emails. You ever try to fill silence with noise? Doesn't work. It just makes the quiet louder. By 10 p.m., I glanced at the clock again. No text, no call, not even a "home soon." And I could still hear her voice in my head. "Don't wait up tonight." So I did what any modern husband does when he can't sleep. I checked the doorbell camera. Not because I didn't trust her, just curiosity, you know? The first clip played. 8:41 p.m. She looked beautiful, standing in the porch light, fixing her hair, smiling down at her phone before getting into her car. I remember thinking, damn, she still got it. Then came the second clip. 12:23 a.m. Headlights swept across the driveway. My heart actually lifted for a second. She's home, safe. But then I leaned closer to the screen, and I froze. The woman stepping out of the car wasn't wearing the red dress. No heels, no clutch, just gray sweatpants, an oversized hoodie, hair pulled back like she'd just come from the gym. No red dress in sight. Now, just imagine that. You watch your wife leave the house dressed like she's going to a dinner party, and come home 4 hours later looking like she spent the night on the couch. I replayed the clip 3 times. Same thing every time. When she finally came in, I was still sitting there. She jumped a little, surprised to see me awake. "Hey," she said, slipping off her shoes. "You're still up." "Couldn't sleep," I answered. "How was dinner?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. We went to this new place downtown. You'd hate it. Loud music, long lines." "Where's the dress?" I asked, casual as I could. Her eyes flickered, just for a split second, before she said, "Oh, I spilled wine on it. Had to borrow sweats from Jenna's car." I nodded. "Smart." That was it. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs. And I didn't say another word. But I knew. I knew. You ever have one of those moments where your body feels calm, but your heart knows it's just the quiet before the storm? That was me, sitting there in the dark, replaying that footage until the screen went black. And I'll tell you something, friends, I didn't confront her that night. I just watched her pretend to sleep, breathing evenly beside me. Because sometimes, when you're dealing with betrayal, the smartest move isn't to blow up. It's to go silent. Let them think they've fooled you. So I lay there, eyes open, calm as ever, and thought to myself, if she wants to lie, let her. But from now on, I'll be the one collecting the truth. Tell me, what would you have done? Would you confront her right then and there? Or would you wait, like I did, to see just how deep the lie went? You ever wake up and know something's wrong before you even open your eyes? That's how the next morning felt. Like the air in the house had changed, heavier somehow. Lauren was already up when I came downstairs. She was standing by the counter, hair still damp from a shower, humming like nothing in the world had happened. Coffee brewing, toast on a plate, the picture of calm domestic life. "Morning," she said, bright and easy. "Morning," I answered. My tone was steady, but my mind was running laps. I was replaying that doorbell footage over and over in my head. The red dress, the sweatpants, the lie about spilling wine. She poured me a cup, just the way I liked it. 1 sugar, no cream. Funny thing, how people can still go through all the motions of love while the truth is rotting underneath it. "So," I said, sitting at the table, "how's Jenna?" She froze for just a fraction of a second. You'd miss it if you weren't looking. But I was. Oh, she's good, she said quickly, still trying to get her catering business off the ground. Good for her, I said, taking a sip. I always liked Jenna. She smiled. A little too wide. Yeah, she's great. Now, I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to recognize when someone's playing defense. My dad used to say, when folks start adding extra words, they're building walls to hide behind. And Lauren? She was laying bricks fast. After breakfast, she kissed me on the cheek and said she was heading to work. But her perfume lingered longer than usual, like she'd sprayed too much, or like she was covering something else. Once she left, I sat there staring at her empty cup. That's when I decided to check something. You folks ever do that? You know, poke around a little just to see if your gut feeling's right? I opened the doorbell app again and clicked through the clips one by one. Then I noticed something I hadn't before, a gap. A chunk of footage missing right around midnight. Now, the camera's motion activated, and it records automatically. So for it to skip, someone had to disable it. I checked the settings. Sure enough, the privacy mode had been switched on for about an hour that night, from 11:32 p.m. to 12:28 a.m. Exactly the time she was supposedly at dinner. Now, I'm not saying I'm a detective, but when your wife disables the camera before coming home, that's not a coincidence. That's intention. So I did something I'd never done before. I opened her laptop. I didn't want to, but something told me the truth wasn't going to walk up and introduce itself. Her email was open, a few unread messages sitting there like bait. Most were work-related, invoices and client notes. But one stood out, no subject line, just a name in the sender field, M. I clicked it. The message was short. Same time next week? That was it. No signature. No explanation. You could have heard my heart drop if you were in the room. I leaned back in the chair, staring at that one line. You ever have a moment when you realize your world just shifted, but you can't tell yet which way it's going to fall? That was mine. I didn't get angry. Didn't even curse. I just sat there thinking, who the hell is M? When she got home that evening, I played it cool. Dinner was quiet. Small talk about work, the weather, her long day. Afterward, I said, hey, the doorbell camera was acting up last night. You didn't happen to mess with it, did you? She looked up from her plate, startled. The camera? No, why? Oh, nothing, I said. It just went into privacy mode around midnight. Thought maybe you hit something by accident. She shook her head. No idea. Maybe it glitched? Yeah, I said softly. Maybe. She smiled then, quick, nervous, and changed the subject. But her hands? They told the truth, her mouth wouldn't. She was twisting her napkin until it tore. That's when I knew for sure. You see, the hardest part isn't finding out someone's lying. It's realizing how good they've gotten at it. So I decided to stop asking questions and start collecting answers. Quietly, patiently. Because sometimes, my friends, the truth doesn't come to you in words. It shows up in missing footage, in nervous hands, in red dresses that never come home. You ever notice how, when something breaks inside you, you start seeing cracks everywhere? That's how the next few days felt. Like the house itself knew something was off. The lights flickered more than usual, the floors creaked louder. Or maybe it was just me, hearing ghosts of things I didn't want to believe. That one little email, same time next week, kept looping in my head like a broken record. Every time I tried to focus on something else, those 4 words came back. I kept wondering, who is M? A man? A woman? A friend? A lover? Now, I don't jump to conclusions easily. I was raised to gather facts before making accusations. But the pieces were starting to fit together a little too neatly, don't you think? The new dress, the missing camera footage, the late-night message from M. And here's the thing. When someone's lying to you, you don't have to chase the truth. You just have to give them enough room to trip over it. That Friday night, she told me she was going out again. Girls' night, she said. Probably another late one. I smiled. Don't wait up, right? She froze for half a heartbeat, then laughed it off. Exactly. Now, tell me honestly, what would you have done? Followed her? Called the restaurant? Pretended you didn't care? Because I'll admit, I considered all 3. But instead, I chose something simpler. I installed a small GPS tracker under her car. Nothing fancy, just a little black box that sends pings to my phone every 10 minutes. I figured, if she was going out for dinner, I'd see which restaurant. And if she wasn't, well, that'd answer my question, wouldn't it? At 8:15 p.m., her car left the driveway. The first ping came from downtown, the usual area for dinners, bars, traffic. Fine. Normal. But by 9:40, the dot started moving again. Not toward home. Not toward any place she'd mentioned. It stopped at a small residential street on the other side of town. Quiet. Middle class. No restaurants. No clubs. Just houses. I zoomed in on the map, my stomach tightening. One of those houses, beige siding, two-car garage, had its lights on. I could almost picture her walking up the driveway. I sat there staring at the screen, the clock ticking past 10 o'clock. You ever have one of those moments where your hands don't move, but your heart's pounding like it's trying to break free? That was me. By 11:20, that still hadn't moved. That was enough for me. I grabbed my jacket and drove out there. Slow. Careful. Headlights dimmed when I turned onto that street. I parked 2 houses down and just watched. The house was quiet, blinds drawn. But parked out front was a black Lexus I'd seen before, from the Christmas party her company threw last year. Belonged to Mark, one of her co-workers. The M suddenly made sense. I watched for 15 minutes. Nothing. No movement. Then, at 11:57, the front door opened. Lauren stepped out. She wasn't wearing the red dress this time. This time it was jeans and a white sweater, her hair pulled back, makeup faded. She stood in the doorway talking to someone I couldn't see. Then she laughed, not loud, just soft, familiar. And that sound, that's what did it. Because I knew that laugh. I'd fallen in love with it years ago, and hearing it there, in front of another man's house, was like hearing it at my own funeral. She got into her car and drove off. I waited until she turned the corner, then I stepped out of mine. Walked up to the house. Lights still on inside. Through the window, I saw him, Mark, standing there with a drink in his hand, phone in the other. He wasn't smiling. Just standing there, staring at the door she'd just walked out of. I left before he could see me. Drove home in silence. Didn't even turn on the radio. When she came in that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, same as before. Calm. Always calm. Hey, she said lightly. You're up again. Couldn't sleep, I replied. She smiled. You really should. You've been so tired lately. Yeah, I said, holding her gaze. Just busy thinking. About what? I took a slow breath. About trust. Her smile faltered. Just a little. But she caught herself quick. You okay? Fine, I said. But hey, I think the car's GPS might be acting up. Got a weird notification tonight. Said you were in Eastwood Terrace. That's not near Jenna's place, is it? Her face drained of color so fast, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Oh, no, it's not. Maybe your phone's glitching again. Maybe, I said softly. I didn't press. Didn't raise my voice. Just stood up, rinsed my cup, and said goodnight. But in that silence that followed, that heavy, suffocating quiet, she knew I knew. And I knew she was about to start lying better. You ever try to sit through a weekend pretending everything's normal when your gut's screaming it isn't? That was me the next 2 days. The kind of calm that doesn't come from peace, it comes from strategy. Saturday morning, Lauren was all sunshine and small talk. Pancakes, laundry, soft music playing from her phone. You know, the I'm a good wife performance. I sat there, sipping my coffee, thinking, she's trying too hard. It's strange, isn't it? When someone's lying to you, they start overcompensating. They clean more, talk more, touch you more. It's not affection, it's camouflage. And Lauren was painting over guilt, like she was rolling a fresh coat of white paint on a moldy wall. Halfway through breakfast, she looked up and said, You've been quiet lately. Everything okay at work? I met her eyes. Work's fine. Just thinking a lot. About what? She asked too quickly. Life, I said. How fast people change. How easy it is to forget who you used to be. That made her blink, but she recovered fast. Well, everyone changes. It's part of growing up. Yeah, I said slowly. But some people change without telling anyone. She froze for just a second. Just long enough. Then she smiled that fake, practice smile. You're in one of your philosophical moods, huh? I smiled back, calm as ever. Something like that. Now, if you were sitting across from me right then, maybe you'd tell me to call her out, to end the charade and get it over with. But let me ask you something. If your spouse is lying to your face, do you gain more by yelling or by listening? Because yelling makes people defensive. But silence makes them nervous. So I stayed quiet. And nervous people make mistakes. By that evening, she was on her phone again, texting faster than usual. I could see her reflection in the TV screen. The way she typed, paused, deleted, then typed again. Guilt has a rhythm, and I knew it by heart. When she went upstairs to shower, I checked her phone. No messages from M. Smart girl, she deleted them. But she missed something. The call log. One incoming call, 6:41 p.m. Private number. Duration, 12 minutes. Now, I don't know about you, but there's only one reason someone hides their number. Sunday rolled around quiet as fog. I didn't say a word. I cooked breakfast, mowed the lawn, even washed her car. Calm, patient, methodical. You might think I was in denial, but I wasn't. I was studying her like a man studies a storm, not to stop it, but to know exactly when to take cover. That night, she came downstairs dressed casual but polished. The kind of look people wear when they want to appear effortless. I might grab dinner with Jenna again, she said, avoiding eye contact. She's been stressed. I leaned back on the couch. You sure it's Jenna? She froze, hand still on the doorknob. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged. Nothing. Just asking. Her tone sharpened. You don't believe me? I didn't say that. Well, it sounds like you're accusing me of something. I looked up at her then, voice steady. If I was accusing you, Lauren, you'd know. That one line hit her harder than any shout ever could. She didn't say another word. Just grabbed her purse and left. I waited 5 minutes, then opened the tracker app. Her car was heading the same direction as before, straight toward Eastwood Terrace. I drove too, but not to follow her. Not this time. I parked a few blocks away, cut the engine, and thought. You know that feeling when you realize someone's rewriting your life story, but they're still using your name in it? That's where I was. By the time I drove home, the decision was made. No confrontation. Not yet. Instead, I started planning my exit. I pulled out a notebook and wrote everything down. The missing footage, the message from M, the call logs, the trips to Eastwood Terrace. I dated each one, printed screenshots, backed everything up. If she wanted to turn this marriage into a performance, I was about to give her the final act. When she came home later, I pretended to be asleep. She crept into bed slowly, careful not to wake me. But her breathing was uneven, shallow, guilt breathing. Lying there in the dark, I looked at her outline beside me and thought, you're not my wife anymore. You're just a stranger living on borrowed time. Now, I know what some of you might say. Why not confront her, get it over with? But let me ask you something truly. If someone you love betrays you, is justice better served in anger or in control? Because I wasn't looking for revenge. Not yet. I was looking for the truth, and when it finally came, I wanted her to choke on it. You ever notice how the calmest moments sometimes come right before everything breaks? Like the air itself is holding its breath, waiting for the truth to walk in? That's how Monday felt. Still. Too still. Lauren was back to her sweet, steady routine. Coffee at 7, perfume by 7:30. That soft smile she wore like armor. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were fine. And maybe that's the most dangerous part of betrayal. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through perfectly ordinary mornings. I was at the kitchen table when she walked in wearing a blue dress I hadn't seen before. Not flashy, just elegant. She looked deliberate. Big meeting today? I asked. She hesitated, adjusting her bracelet. Just lunch with some clients. Nothing major. I nodded, pretending to believe it. You ever play along just to see how far someone will go with their story? That's exactly what I was doing. By noon, her car's tracker pinged again. Not downtown, not near her office. Eastwood Terrace. Same street. Same house. I didn't go after her this time. Instead, I went to a little diner across town, the kind of place that hasn't changed its wallpaper since the 80s. Ordered coffee, black, and sat there thinking. You folks know that feeling, sitting in public, pretending to be calm while your insides are rearranging themselves? That's where I was. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From her. Dinner tonight? I want to talk. Just like that. No heart emoji, no small talk. Just I want to talk. Now, I've been around long enough to know what those 4 words mean. They're not about talking. They're about confessing, but on their terms. I typed back. Sure. Home at 6? Perfect, she replied. I could almost feel her relief through the screen. She thought this was her chance to get ahead of the story. When she came home that evening, she'd gone all out. Table set, candles lit, roast in the oven. The kind of scene that used to mean comfort, but now just felt like camouflage. She poured 2 glasses of wine, hands shaking slightly. I wanted tonight to be nice, she said. No tension, no guessing. Sounds good. I said, sitting down. Calm, polite, detached. For a few minutes, she talked about work. Her voice kept wobbling, like a radio drifting in and out of signal. Finally, she put her fork down. There's something I need to tell you. Here it comes, I thought. She looked at me, eyes shiny. I've been confused lately. About us. Confused, I repeated. That's a new one. She nodded quickly. It's not what you think. Now, here's where I paused, just long enough to make her wonder how much I already knew. So, I said, what do I think? She blinked, caught off guard. I don't know. I feel like we've grown distant, and I've been spending time with people from work, and maybe I let it go too far. There it is, I said quietly. She froze. There what is? The part where you start rewriting the story to make it sound less like betrayal and more like bad timing. Her breath hitched. Dean, please. I raised a hand. Calm. Always calm. Don't rush it. I want to hear exactly how you tell it. Her voice cracked. It was never serious. It was just comfort. Someone to talk to. I let that sit. Then I asked, comfort? Is that what you were wearing the red dress for? Her fork slipped and hit the plate. The color drained from her face. How did you? I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Doorbell camera. You looked beautiful that night. But I have to say, the sweatpants you came home in told a very different story. She covered her mouth like she'd been slapped. You checked the footage? Of course I did. You told me not to wait up. So I didn't. I watched instead. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Just sat there trembling, the truth unraveling around her. I'm sorry, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to. Supposed to what? Happen? End? Stay hidden? She shook her head, tears spilling now. I made a mistake. I nodded slowly. Yes, you did. And you made it twice. Once when you did it, and again when you lied about it. The room went silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Funny how loud time sounds when your life's falling apart. Finally, she said, can we fix this? I looked her dead in the eye. Do you even know what this is anymore? She didn't answer. I stood up, left my untouched dinner on the plate, and walked toward the door. Before I stepped out, I turned and asked her the question that had been burning a hole in my chest since the first night. When you told me not to wait up, Lauren, did you really think I wouldn't? She couldn't look at me. I didn't need her to, because by then, I already had everything I needed. The footage, the logs, the truth. And as I stepped outside, the night air hit me like a reset button. You ever notice that after the truth comes out, silence hits different? It's not peace. It's not closure. It's more like standing in the middle of an empty church after the service is over. The echo of voices still there, but everyone's gone. That's what the next morning felt like. Lauren didn't say a word when I came downstairs. She just stood by the counter, clutching a coffee mug with both hands, staring at nothing. The same woman who used to hum while making breakfast now couldn't meet my eyes. Did you sleep? I asked. She shook her head. Barely. Me neither. We stood there like two strangers who happened to share the same house. She looked smaller somehow. You know that moment when guilt drains the fight right out of someone? That was her. Finally, she said, I told Mark it was over. I nodded. Good. She hesitated. I deleted his number, too. I took a sip of my coffee. You might want to delete the memories while you're at it. That one landed. She winced, turned away, and wiped at her eyes. Now, some of you listening might be thinking, well, she admitted it. Maybe that's enough. And I get that. We're from a generation that believes in fixing things. The kind of people who patched jeans, mended fences, and didn't throw away a marriage just because it cracked. But this was different. Because a crack you can see, you can fix. A secret, though? That's rot. It eats from the inside until there's nothing left to patch. I don't want to lose you, she said quietly. I made a mistake, but I still love you. I looked at her, steady and calm. You love me, but you lied to me. Repeatedly. Tell me, Lauren, what kind of love hides like that? She didn't answer. She just broke down, full-on crying now. Not the fake, sniffly kind. The real kind. The kind that shakes the whole body. And I'll be honest with you, folks, it hurt to see her like that. Because even after everything, part of me still remembered the woman who used to wait for me at the door after long workdays, barefoot, smiling, like I was her whole world. But that woman was gone. After a while, she said, can we try counseling? I thought about it. Counseling sounded like a lifeline, but you don't save a ship after it's already sunk. I'm not ready for that, I said. You had months to talk. You chose silence. Now it's my turn. I could see the words hit her. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Not harshly, just enough to make a point. That afternoon, I went for a drive. Didn't tell her where I was going. Just needed air. You ever do that? Drive with no destination, windows down, radio low, thoughts loud? That's therapy for men like me. I ended up at the lake. The same spot where I'd proposed to her years ago. Back then, the water felt endless, full of promise. Now it looked like a mirror showing me everything I'd ignored. I sat there watching the sun drop behind the trees, and I started thinking about what comes next. Divorce? Maybe. Distance? Definitely. But anger? No. That was gone now. What replaced it was something colder, cleaner, acceptance. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch waiting. Eyes red, tissues scattered on the coffee table. I thought you weren't coming back, she whispered. I told you last night, I said softly. I don't yell. I don't storm out. I think. She nodded, biting her lip. So what are you thinking? I'm thinking you should stay with your sister for a few days, I said. We both need space. Her face crumbled. Dean, please. I cut her off gently. Lauren, this isn't punishment. It's perspective. You need to see what life looks like without me in it. She started crying again, but I didn't move to comfort her. That's the hardest part, isn't it? The first time you stop trying to fix something that broke. She packed a small bag that night. No argument, no last-minute begging. Just quiet defeat. When she left, she stood in the doorway for a second, looking back at me. Will you call me? She asked. Maybe, I said. And that was the truth. Maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't. When the door closed behind her, the silence that followed didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. I poured myself a drink, sat in her empty spot on the couch, and let out a long breath. You know, people think heartbreak is loud. But real heartbreak? It's quiet. It's the sound of your house breathing differently because someone's missing. You ever walk into a room and swear it still remembers someone who isn't there anymore? That's how the house felt after Lauren left. Her perfume still hung in the air, faint but stubborn. That floral kind she wore when she wanted to feel confident. The one I used to love. Now it smelled like a lie that wouldn't fade. The first morning alone, I made coffee for 2 out of habit. Then I caught myself, poured the extra cup down the sink, and laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh, just a quiet acknowledgement that old routines die slow. I kept busy. Yard work, fixing a leaky faucet, organizing the garage. It's funny, isn't it? When a man's heart breaks, he doesn't talk about it. He mows something. He builds something. Anything to feel useful while his world is rearranging itself. By the 3rd day, she started calling. I didn't answer the first few. On the 4th, I finally picked up. Dean, she said softly. Her voice was small, like a child asking for forgiveness before she even said what for. Lauren, I've been thinking a lot. I know you don't owe me a thing, but can we talk? I took a breath, watching the afternoon light cut across the kitchen floor. What is there left to say? I need you to know it wasn't about you. It was about me. I was lost. I almost smiled. You ever notice how people say it's not about you right before they describe exactly how they hurt you? Yeah, I said, keeping my voice calm. I figured that out. You wanted to see if you could still make someone chase you. That's not fair, she whispered. Maybe not, I said. But it's true. There was silence on the other end, heavy enough to fill the room. Then she said something I didn't expect. I saw my reflection in him. Not who I am, who I wanted to be. But it was fake. I know that now. I leaned back in my chair. Then maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes, when people chase a version of themselves, they end up losing the people who love them for the real one. She started crying quietly. Not the same sobs from before. This was different. Hollow. Like she'd finally realized what she'd broken couldn't be glued back together. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. I didn't respond right away. I just listened to her breathing through the phone, remembering the hundreds of mornings we'd shared, the laughter, the way she used to say my name like it meant something. Then I said, Lauren, I believe you're sorry. But sometimes sorry just means you finally understand what you destroyed. She didn't argue, just whispered, goodbye, and hung up. I sat there for a while, staring at my hands. They were rougher than I remembered, maybe from work, maybe from holding on too tight to something that was already gone. Later that evening, I went through the box of our old photos, vacations, birthdays, random selfies from years when we were still figuring each other out. We looked happy in those pictures, but what struck me most was how young we looked. Not in years, but in faith. The kind of faith that love alone can fix anything. I put the box away, not out of anger, out of respect. Some things don't belong in the trash. They belong in storage, where you can remember them without reopening the wound. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of bourbon, the kind that burns slow. The stars were out, clear, cold, quiet. And I realized something that might sound strange to some of you, but maybe not to folks my age. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not even at myself. Just done. Peace doesn't show up with fireworks. It shows up like this, in the stillness after the storm, when you can finally breathe without asking why. I thought about calling her back, maybe just to say I hoped she found what she was looking for. But I didn't, because some goodbyes don't need to be repeated. Instead, I looked out into the dark and thought about something my father once told me when his own marriage ended. He said, "Son, sometimes love isn't meant to last forever. Sometimes it's just meant to teach you how to love better next time." And for the first time since that red dress night, I understood exactly what he meant. So let me ask you this. Have you ever forgiven someone without letting them back in? That quiet kind of forgiveness that isn't about reunion, but about release? Because that's what I did that night. I forgave her. Not for her sake, for mine. And I'll tell you something, friends, that kind of peace, it's worth every broken piece it takes to earn it. You know, folks, the funny thing about time is that it doesn't heal you. It just gives you enough distance to see things clearly. It's been 6 months since that night with the red dress, since the lie that cracked open my marriage like a frozen pipe in winter. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not the same man who sat in that kitchen watching the footage. I'm better, calmer, wiser. I still live in the same house. The same creaky floors, the same kitchen table where I once listened to her lies. But the silence now? It's friendly, peaceful, not heavy like it used to be. Sometimes I even talk to it, just to hear my own voice again. I fixed up the guest room, the one she used to call her office. Took out her old desk, replaced it with a workbench. These days, I build little wooden clocks. Nothing fancy, just something to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. There's something poetic about it, don't you think? Building things that measure time after spending so long trying to stop it. Every now and then, I still see her name pop up in my email. Not messages, just old threads I never deleted. I could erase them with one click, but I don't. They're part of the story, part of who I was. And that's okay, because life isn't about cutting out the chapters that hurt. It's about learning how to turn the page without rereading them. Last month, I ran into her at the grocery store. First time since she left. She looked different, smaller somehow, like life had deflated her a bit. We talked for a minute, polite and distant. She said she was staying with her sister still, working part-time, figuring things out. You ever look at someone and realize the version of them you loved doesn't live in their eyes anymore? That's what it was. When she said, "You look good, Dean," I just smiled. So do you. And that was that. No bitterness. No hidden meaning. Just two people standing in the same aisle, miles apart, in every way that matters. On the drive home, I didn't think about the red dress or the lies. I thought about the quiet strength it takes to rebuild yourself when the person you trusted most is gone. I thought about how peace isn't something you find, it's something you choose. Every single day, I've started seeing someone new too. Her name's Evelyn. Met her at the hardware store of all places. She was arguing with the clerk about the right kind of drill bit, and I couldn't help but laugh. There was something genuine about her. No pretense, no games. Just real. We take things slow. I told her the truth early on, about Lauren, about everything. She listened without judgment, and when I finished, she just said, "You must have loved her a lot." I did, I told her. And that's why I learned even more from losing her. That seemed to make sense to her. It made sense to me, too. You see, at some point, every man learns there's strength in restraint, in not reacting, not begging, not breaking your dignity for someone who threw it away. That calm I carried through all of it wasn't coldness. It was self-respect. And if you're listening to this and you've ever been through something similar, maybe your own red dress moment, let me tell you, the storm won't last forever. The silence that follows might scare you at first, but it's where you'll find yourself again. One evening last week, I sat on the porch watching the sun set behind the trees. The sky was gold and quiet. I realized something simple but true. I wasn't thinking about her anymore. Not in anger, not in sadness. just ingratitude. Because her betrayal had stripped me down to something honest. It taught me patience. It taught me control. And it reminded me that a man's worth isn't measured by how loudly he fights for someone. It's measured by how calmly he lets go when the fight's no longer his. So, friends, if you take one thing from my story, let it be this. When the person you love walks out in a red dress and comes home in sweatpants full of excuses, don't chase. Don't shout. Don't crumble. Just stand tall, stay quiet, and let the truth reveal itself. Because one day, when the dust settles and the silence finally feels like peace, you'll look back and realize you didn't lose her. You found you.